Look, detectives combing through the hood looking for a corpse. Draco hitting. I don't think your body can endure the force. I whipped the fish up with a fucking hanger or a fork. Told that bitch, go ahead, sniff what you want. There's plenty more to snort. I had an outstanding warrant for a short. Turned myself in, rocking Louis and all my jewelry. I wore the court.
So, location 6. First Sergeant Shamus Flynn back in the building, episode 77. First Sergeant, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing well. It's I don't know, it's 9 o'clock or whatever at night here in Texas. It's still like 101 degrees. My first couple days of my new career were sweltering hot, but the humidity was actually pretty low. So it felt like a expected hot day in 29 Palms, I would say.
Okay.
You know,
You're fully embracing the civilian-esque. You're looking fresh. You're looking somewhat relaxed. That kind of breezes us into the first question I wanted to get after is, really tell the people, articulate for us why you're retiring.
Yeah, it's kind of a common question. Really from E1 to, I mean, in one case, Lieutenant General, right, to 09, because I had more to throw down, I would say,
We all can see that.
Yeah, especially with a transitional period of the Marine Corps going into force design, which we'll cover later, but I enjoy leading Marines thoroughly, and 100% believe that my generation of senior enlisted leaders, which is to include really all the E8s and all the E9s right now, were pretty much either squad leaders or boots when the wars started, right? So you were a squad leader, you were a warehouse NCOIC, you were a shop chief, you were an insert E4 or E5 billet, or you were a brand new Marine, you were a rifleman, you were a mechanic, you were an admin clerk, you were etc. Right? Why that's important is the formative years of our Marine Corps experience were in war, right?
Yep.
And I believe that's important, and I know for a fact with many of my friends who are battalion level leaders, whether they are sergeants major or master gunnery sergeants now, or chief warrant officer threes, prior enlisted captains or majors, right?
Bald dog.
Yeah, they've got that. They've got that experience now, and that does extend to our a few years younger officers, right? We have majors right now who were lieutenants in 08, 09 in the savage time in Afghanistan, right? So yeah, I get it. But I say all that to say that I have confidence that I know enough people that are gonna carry the warfighting machine through. Why I retired instead of going forward when I still have some, fuel in the tank is it's my family, man. Like, I've moved 5 times. My kids have made friends, and they haven't lost friends, but they've lost them geographically, right?
Yeah, of course. That's tough at that age too.
I mean, I ended my retirement ceremony by saying, with a freaking beer like usual, like toasting to the only job where you meet a new set of best friends every 3 years, right?
Absolutely.
But the reality is your kids lose a new set of best friends every 3 years, right? So, and talent management 2030, kind of spearheaded, or at least the end responsibility of talent management 2030 is kind of on General Smith, right? Who's the acting commandant right now. General Smith has talked a lot about how are we going to manage talent? How are we going to retain talent? And a big portion of that is keeping people around for a little while longer. Um, if you're in an MOS, like my former MOS, motor transport maintenance, there's motor T in almost every unit. You can move all the time. And I believe we had pretty good monitors while I was in, but sometimes the monitors need to move people, and I was always full duty, and I never had any exceptional family member program dependence. So it was very, very easy to move me.
Gotcha.
And you got tired of it, man. You got tired of it,
Maybe give some advice to some of the the family, enlisted, maybe officers, fathers, mothers that are, deploying, that are making the move with their families, across oceans. What's some advice that you would give them, man?
Well, I would say keep your head up, because I do believe that the talent management kind of stability plan, or a geographical stability plan, is going to take effect based off the guidance of our senior leadership. If you are going to if you're going to be staying in, do your best to try to do that special duty assignment if you can in a local area, right? Like, combat instructor is not technically an special duty assignment, but consider going to be a combat instructor, right? If you want to be a drill instructor, right? Like, consider lining that drill instructor time up after your tour in Camp Pendleton, right? Or maybe you can project out, like trying to get to MCAS Beaufort, South Carolina, and then go be a drill instructor after that, right? You can really, I'm omitting recruiting right now because that's just,
I noticed.
I know, I'm omitting recruiting right now. Recruiting, I didn't have to do it, right? I never had to be a recruiter. I'm glad I didn't. However, I was the subject of two phenomenal recruiters throughout 2002 and 2003.
Really?
Yep, Stephen Lee and Jason Auger, right? And one was infantry, one was MP. Very, very good recruiters. They prepared me. I knew the knowledge book back and forth. I could do 20 pull-ups before I joined. The recruiting thing, you just have to go and you need to manage your expectations, right? But my general opinion about recruiting is it's kind of unfair. The expectations are unfair, right?
Very high position.
A new tour of duty every month, and where you can go from hero to zero from January to February, is pretty obnoxious to me. But
right.
No one will entertain that. No one at the senior level will actually entertain like recruiting reform, if you wanted to call it that. It's not going to happen. And I don't really want to get into it because it's like I'm talking about something I never did, right?
Yeah, I get it.
But
we put out 4 shorts so far of, honestly, I kind of, so before we had a little offline combo before we started filming, and this production is something I've never done before. We visited your location down in Connecticut. We got a little range time in there. And then we went up to the family location up in Maine, and you've welcomed me with open arms. And I gotta say, it's really shown me the type of leader that you were, or you still are, because not only did you welcome me and just make me feel like I was one of your own, but it showed to me what you did with your Marines in a certain type of how do I put this? There's a way to make every, I mean, you know how to keep work and friends. I don't know how you would say this. Staying professional, but also being able to make your lance corporals and your corporals feel like family to a certain degree. And
yeah, well, you hit it there. It's family, right? And I mean, probably my best example of family would have been truck company headquarters battalion, 3rd Marine Division
yeah, you
in
bring that up a
Okinawa.
lot.
You know,
Sure.
my final gunnery sergeant position as a motor transport maintenance chief. Um, I was hard on them, right? And the other gunny was hard on him. Chief Warrant Officer Ambrose was hard on him, and at the time, Staff Sergeant Sempel was hard on him. But uh, we had our ways of maintaining that family, and we had a impeccable NCO corps that managed the barracks.
Would you say
Physical.
that's almost where you're winning is
Oh
when you
yeah,
have yeah.
yeah, you're winning there because, hey, hell, those guys, like I told you in Maine, like those guys had to handle things physically and mentally, right? And sometimes it gets a little rough, emotionally, physically, but we had a, I knew in Okinawa when we had friction off hours that it would be handled appropriately legally, right? It would be handled by the NCOs. Um, Now, Staff Sergeant Eddie Tai, he's actually getting medically retired because he got a bunch of injuries, but he would call me with the entire 5 Ws of the incident:
Stop it.
who, what, when, where, why. He would be like, Gunner Sergeant, this is what's going on. This is where how we're handling it. I've already contacted the officer of the day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd just be like,
Nice.
Roger that. You know what
You
I
have
mean?
someone like that in your,
Yeah, yeah,
repertoire, dude.
yeah. It was the
Can't go
same.
wrong.
I had an incredible NCO corps there. Ivan Delatorre, now a staff sergeant. Um, Thor Bullis, Angel Tolentino. I mean, the list just goes on. I had
Would
incredible junior Marines there. You know,
would you what I was getting at, would you kind of consider that one of the most pivotal ranks in the enlisted repertoire, if you will? I mean, pivotal is probably the wrong word.
so what? Sergeant or gunnery sergeant?
No, I'm talking corporal. I'm
Oh,
talking that,
corporal. Yeah.
yeah. Corporal is sergeant. I mean, I think a lot of guys stay at corporal for a long time, and they they almost command a certain type of respect throughout the barracks. The guys listen to them because they
Hmm.
also they'll cry on their shoulder a little bit too, and
Yeah, yeah.
you kind of get both, eds there. And
Well,
I
maybe
really good.
I would say, the Army has the rank of corporal, but it's a very small percentage compared to the people who hold the rank of specialist, right? And um, if we have a success, um, a leadership and a personal success in the Marine Corps, it's probably the fact that corporal, regardless, is the first NCO rank, right? You know, like yes, petty officer 3rd class is the first petty officer rank in the Navy, but it's not the same. We we decentralize and delegate authority and responsibility to the lowest level possible. I mean, I was 19-year-old corporal,
I
you
was
know.
just I was just gonna say that. Do you think that getting that responsibility thrusted onto you kind of, I don't know, it makes certain guys shine? I mean, they're not used to
Yeah,
getting that type of responsibility, and then when you have it, you're like, I want to show them that what I can do with it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, in my case, it probably, 19-year-old corporal, 20-year-old sergeant. I thought I knew everything because I had a Global War on Terror Expeditionary Medal and an Iraq Campaign Medal, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, but it gave me time to kind of figure it out, and then I was a sergeant for 5 years, staff sergeant for five
Oh,
years,
I don't know
gunny for almost 5 years, so
what you're talking
um,
about. Shit.
yeah, so Motor T is kind of like that, and there's some other MOSs that are like that, supply warehouse or parachute rigger, optics technician, right? There's a lot of MOSs where you do stay in those ranks for a very, very long time. And there's some of that are the opposite, supply admin opposite, embarkation specialist opposite, right? So it's on the individual to kind of gain in that maturity, because yeah, the Marine Corps likes to say that it's a performance-based promotion system, but in reality, it's really subject to some of your MOSs.
Okay. Um, it's funny you bring up like your guys out in Okie because that I mean that's how MP company was for me in in my enlistment. I mean, that was, I don't know if it's because we're just away from home for so long and we just feel like we really need to dive into the role so much more. But I mean, that's when I got the most out of everything. I mean, that's when I was a corporal, and I mean, I deployed out of there multiple times, and I don't know. There's something about Okinawa that I think brings the most out of Marines.
Well, let's jump into your question about
Yep.
what I would talk to the commandant about.
Let's hear it.
Um, you've asked me a couple times, like if I had the year of acting commandant, by the way, because one member of Congress doesn't want to freaking play ball.
Like, come on.
Which is I don't care. It's absolutely irresponsible. But whatever. Absolutely irresponsible.
What's he trying to do? I mean,
he's mad about the military is trying to make some exceptions and concessions for women who are stationed in states that have illegalized abortion.
oh my God, are you serious?
The bill wants to provide funding for them to go out of state, which I won't comment on all that. But what I think is ridiculous is that this is one. It's irresponsible. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible that we're going to sit here without a confirmed commandant, because General Smith should not have to do two jobs.
It's ridiculous.
But whatever. So anyway,
got his ear. What are we going at? What are we saying?
If I have General Smith's ear and Sergeant Major Black for the next like 4 days, and Sergeant Major Ruiz here in 4 days. Wait, if I had Sergeant Major Ruiz's ear again, because I've had it, I've had it in a couple times in person.
What's he like?
Sergeant Major Ruiz is the absolute leader that the Marine Corps needs right now. I am excited and freaking proud that he is leaving from MFR / MAR4 South to go be the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Phenomenal leader. I would fucking kick in the doors to hell with him, right? In the stacks. Absolutely. If I had those two gentlemen's ear, I would look at it as like strategic, operational, tactical, right? Strategic being like institutional, operational kind of being like the personnel and the professional development level, right? And then at the tactical level, I'd honestly talk about gear and equipment and stuff like that in the barracks, gear, equipment in the barracks, right? So starting out with our strategic level, if the National Defense Strategy 2 in a row, 2018 and 2022, have specifically directed the Marine Corps and the Navy to shift focus to peer pacing threat, whatever. China's a peer threat, right? Indo-PACOM focus, right? Okay, cool. But just saying that or codifying that in writing and directing that is not going to make the average Marine or Marine with a family just be like, oh, well, the president, the SecDef, the SecNav, and the commandant say that we should go to freaking Okinawa and prioritize Okinawa. They're not going to automatically think that, right? Let's be serious, man. Like, if I could change one thing, and I would leverage freaking Marine Corps Comstrat, who headquarters Marine Corps Comstrat has some phenomenal people that work there. And if all it takes is looking at the past, maybe up to 2 years worth of Marine Corps recruiting videos and content that they put out, they are killing it, right? They're killing it.
Yep.
And because they've shifted, or not really shifted, they have continued to focus on warfighting, right? The warfighting perception of the Marine Corps, right? All the recruiting videos are, and it's all like this like amphibious and naval force focus, right? I would prioritize, advertise, and incentivize service and Indo-PACOM if I was a commandant and Sergeant Major Marine Corps. 100%. And people bring up things like, oh, that's not fair. There's, whatever. Look, the answer is not always just throwing bonuses out or extra overseas pay or extra cost of living allowance or whatever it is, right? I would straight up make it a board precept, a precept for board promotion. Service in Indo-PACOM is a precept briefable item for promotion. This is the focus from the President of the United States all the way on down for this institution. If you volunteer to serve in Indo-PACOM, I would make it a note on the promotion board for consideration for promotion over the rest of the damn country.
Really?
Oh, that's not fair. Oh, that's not fair. Combat's not fair. You think the weapons engagement zone of the freaking Chinese is going to be fair? No, it's
Absolutely not.
No, it's not. That's going to be out of control. So, oh well, some people can't go over there because of this, because of that. You're correct, but I know monitors, and I can tell you for 100% fact, and every single monitor will agree with me. The majority of people who are getting out of or giving the monitors friction about going to Indo-PACOM, it's not for, it's based off comfort-based decisions, right? There are some 100% valid reasons for not wanting to serve in Indo-PACOM, which includes Hawaii, right? Some of those
great point.
Maybe your wife has a great job. Maybe your wife has or your spouse rather has a education plan that doesn't jive with living in Okinawa, right, or Guam or Iwakuni, et cetera, right? I understand that, but this institution doesn't have to be fair with everything. You know what I'm saying?
Like, when did that start? When did that start happening? Especially in the Marines. I mean,
I don't know, man. I don't know. We're not fair with our considerations for, somebody ran a 300 PFT, somebody ran a 271 PFT. What's better? The 300 PFT, right?
Facts.
We have a grading scale. I mean, we have somebody who's making 100% reports
for a reason.
And a lot of people will think that I'm not speaking in not realistically, but if you really want to get people to go overseas, you're going to have to pay them, and you're going to have to give them an incentive, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe, okay, we can't pay them anymore, and we can't make a board precept for promotion. Well, why don't we actually get our Comstrat people out to Okinawa and make some freaking advertisements about how awesome it is out there?
Something.
I remember the other gunny who's now a chief warrant officer, Sean Tebow. His kids were playing baseball in like legitimate Japanese baseball leagues and
really?
Like crushing it. And they're probably going. He's from New England too. He's from Maine. They're probably going to end up going back to New England when he retires, and they're going to be freaking all-star high school baseball
monsters,
players.
Dude. Yeah, exactly.
Because they trained under that Japanese discipline, right?
Yep. That's a real thing.
Put on a GoPro, take your Comstrat kids, put on a GoPro, and go freaking go snorkeling off the coast right there in the reef, right? Or go on a hike, avoid the spiders, right? But go on a hike up the mountains, right? And go showcase some freaking ramen places, hole in the wall places. Like,
so good.
The Okinawa experience doesn't just have to be freaking Camp Courtney and Foster, right? Like,
I mean, that's something that you kind of really go after, dude. Is show what we're doing, where we're at.
Yeah. Well, that includes Guam too, because we're building Guam up. We got Camp Blas, right? And Guam is beautiful.
I know nothing about Guam, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the United States, and it's like this tropical feel. And unfortunately, I was there during COVID, so I didn't.
Similar to Oki, though. Did it give you an Oki vibe?
That like semi-tropical, I guess, terrain and weather. Yes, yeah, definitely. So, that's my strategic level, man. That's my pitch. That's my pitch. Like, there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but
I like how you address the cons too, because that's what's going to get thrown at.
Yeah, it is. Next thing would be our operational level, which I'm looking at like personnel progression, right, and leadership progression.
So that's what we got to retain some leaders, man. Yeah. I mean, retention's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're not doing that.
Well, I have a serious issue with the lack of comparability, equity between enlisted and officer PME, right? And I feel
like no one talks about that, dude.
I have Marine officers that I talk to on a weekly basis, if not daily basis, right? I call them for counsel. They call me for counsel. We send memes back and forth. We BS, whatever, right? But when I can watch Marine officers, now these are the high performing officers, but when I watch these officers go away out of the fleet for 1-2 years at a time to focus on themselves, right?
Yeah.
They focus on their education, and in turn,
it's worded differently though.
yeah. And in turn, that education gets pushed back to the Fleet Marine Force, and we've got these warfighting trained and 05 planner trained guys, and cool, right? The only, not the only, one of the only ways an enlisted Marine is going to be able to like take a break from the fleet to focus on themselves is the Staff and CO degree completion program, right? But the thing is that degree completion program, you owe time back to a thing in the Marine Corps other than the fleet right away.
Yep.
Marine Corps University, and a couple other things, right? Now, granted, going to the Marine Corps University and making waves is great. There's multiple friends of mine that have gone and done that, but I would like to see an immediate return to the fleet after some of these programs, right? And perfect. So, and they bring it up. We don't have the time, and it's not fair. I don't care if it's not fair. Make it a meritocracy, right? Like
time's always thrown at that, dude. We don't have enough time yet.
Right. Okay, it's not fair. Well, maybe the highest performing staff and COs should be able to apply to go to expeditionary warfare school and sit right next to these captains that are going through it. That way, they're a gunnery sergeant, they're staff sergeant. When they make first sergeant, when they make master sergeant, and they're a company level advisor, they can actually talk freaking warfighting to the person
higher level.
And talking about timelines, most of those company grade officers are going to EWS. It depends on where they're at in their career, right? But either way, there's not even a comparable education education timeline between enlisted and officer, right? An officer can go 20 years in the Marine Corps, and his or her education is going to be facilitated by the Corps. They're going to walk away with literally years worth of gap. Years worth of gaps where they got to go focus on themselves. If you meet a master gunnery sergeant, a master sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major, or gunnery sergeant, and they have like a master's degree, they did that on their own.
Exactly. They grinded that out. Yeah.
They grinded that out, and they woke up at 05:30. They went and PT their guys. They logged in on lunchtime. They freaking did discussion boards on their phone out on the fucking
What is that
range.
even classified as like an officer doing that? Is that special TAD or is that?
It's not even TAD. It's direct assignments. They're permanent change of state. Yeah, permanent change of station moves, man.
Wow.
Whether you go to EWS resident in Quantico, or maybe you get to go to command staff for the Air Force, command staff for the Army.
I didn't know that. Huh?
The enlisted side, when you're in, E8, E9, you can go to the Army Sergeant's Major Academy, for a year in Fort Bliss, Texas. But, that you've got 18 years in by that point.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like it's not even freaking comparable, man. No. And if you really want your enlisted force, your enlisted leadership force to be on the same, level, the same academic and intellectual level as your guy, we're supposed to be advising. We're supposed to be advising these company and battalion leaders, right? But there's no requirement for any type of education, really, like except for, the Staff Academy, which, to be completely honest with you, the Staff Academy is, the Marine Corps University Staff Academy. They're trying to make improvements. And some of they're meeting roadblocks, right? And there, some leaders don't want things like wargaming to be instituted, in some of these curriculums, right? They want to bring time.
That's always. I hear it. I get
time. It. Time is an argument. You're right.
I know.
Time is a legitimate argument, but I would like to see that improved. Moving into the tactical level, you know, the boots on the ground, the barracks level, the range training level, you know, your E5 and below, you know, first enlistment level. They are working on changing the utilities, the camis.
Ooh.
Just a better fabrics, more modern fabrics. I think the plan is to keep
It's
the digital.
something. It's something.
You know, because I've always made the argument that we need to be issuing frog gear to the guys.
Woodland frogs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that should be the, you know, we're talking.
I don't know. Did I lose you, bro? Damn. Pause right there. Good to go. You there, bro?
Yep, I'm here now.
All right, we're live.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I would like to see a combat uniform issued. That way we can not have to wear. I mean, I like utility. Marpat utilities are, you know, the MCCU is a good uniform, but you know, it's 2023. We can do
I don't
better.
like wearing that out there.
Yeah. Finally, you know, we're getting. I think we have like 5 or 6 pairs of approved boots now, which is good. Those things are coming. It's been good to see at least the infantry battalions get issued, you know, high cut helmets with comms and PVS 31s and a good rifle, a great rifle, by the way.
Yeah.
A great optic.
Talk about that real quick. Talk about it real quick.
What the rifle?
The whole setup.
Oh, the whole setup is. I mean, hell, the Rangers have had it for 10 years. Not that specific rifle, but the Rangers have been equipped and trained and trusted for years and years and years, right? You know, I think we're finally getting to the point where the Marine infantry is, you know, it's funny, we get rid of tanks and all of a sudden we got a bunch of money, right? You know, so that's been good.
Ukraine showed that tanks are kind of worthless, actually. I mean, I've been seeing these, you know, small rocket launchers just taking out these gigantic.
Hey, tell you what. Hey, now we know how good the AT4 and the
seriously
Carl Gustav is.
We
right?
seriously, we haven't used the AT4 like that. You know,
not like that. No. I think like one of the early versions of the AT4 was used in the Persian Gulf War because General Mattis talked about I think like the motor T officer and like one of the S3 officers in Desert Storm used an AT4 to like take out a tank Hulk or something, right? I don't know what, you know, but at the scale that we're at right now, we're finally finding out what our ordnance can do. But
I mean, are you just shooting that at the track to knock the track loose, and then, or is it like a component of the engine that combusts and you're getting actual like an explosion out of it?
Friends of mine who are retired and are in the community that facilitates those weapon systems are telling me that the AT4 is completely taking out full Russian armor.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously not a specialist in any of that, but it's an effective weapon, right? So
my bad.
So gear, right? We could gear is a rabbit hole. Right, gear's a rabbit hole. The equipment that is issued to the standard issue Marine, whether it's the older issue that you and I had, or whether it's the newer stuff that is going to the infantry battalions, the gear is good and suitable. Right. Sometimes you're in a battalion that has a gear SOP. Luckily, most of the gear SOPs aren't like crazy anymore. We're like, you're so uniform, you look like a North Korean freaking army, you know, formation, right?
Seriously.
And you know, when you're in that type of unit, sometimes you just got to deal with it, right? And then you can bitch about it, and maybe you'll stay in long enough, and you can make some change.
Yeah, exactly.
I never had an issue. When I was with the old skipper Tom Fiametta in an LE battalion, he had a couple things that he wanted to see that were uniform. I advised him. We came to a happy medium. We presented that to the platoon sergeants, platoon commanders, and all the squad leaders. We came up with a happy medium, and we wrote it, codified it, and he signed off on it, right?
Like gentlemen. Okay.
Yeah, you know, yeah. Again, we'll just leave it at that. Gear is a rabbit hole.
I like it.
Yeah. That the barracks, though, you know, a lot of money has been put into the barracks and also into all the physical training centers, the HIT centers.
Hey, that's seriously. I mean, it's only going to do better for our guys. I mean,
yeah, you know, the high intensity tactical training centers, like the one they just built in San Mateo, Amazing.
Really?
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Major Schumann, Killzone,
Yep.
put it up there a while back. But there's also some ownership on the barracks that needs to happen when it comes to the people who live there, right? And if you're breaking stuff and not taking care of it, not cleaning your house and not being responsible with it, the stuff is going to deteriorate, right? Especially in Camp Lejeune, right? In Okinawa, places where the weather is just horrid. They need to back to Okinawa. They need to put the construction on in 6th gear.
Seriously.
It's sitting in about 4th gear right now, but
well, they need to actually dump the money into it that is required, because this is a different environment, man. We're not in Lejeune. The humidity out there is real. It's going to tear apart the stuff on the inside there. I mean, come on.
If you want one instance of my career where I had I had to give it to the NCOs with their response. I said, gentlemen, the barracks, you guys need to take a little more ownership of the barracks. It's getting kind of nasty. Like, we've got to be within policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the sergeants, Cardoza, Trayson Cardoza, is now a staff sergeant I got him orders to MARSOC, which is rad. He looked at me and he said, it's really hard to take the barracks seriously here when they're building a brand new hotel right across the freaking the way.
Seriously.
They built a new Inns of the Corps behind the PX on Camp Hansen. And it's like, you can build this super nice hotel,
but you can't for the guys.
But you got Marines who don't. There's not even a light fixture in the ceiling. Like, they had lamps.
It's absurd.
It's the dumbest freaking design ever, right? And anybody who's lived in the barracks in Okinawa is like laughing about this right now. You know what I mean? Like,
of course.
What else
are you gonna do though?
Yeah, so I would continue on the path of trying to improve the bachelor enlisted quarters, right? Continue to improve I think one of the best things we ever did was make the hit centers versus the indoor gyms. I probably worked out in an indoor gym on Okinawa less than 20 times in the 3 years I was there.
Really?
Absolutely. I went to the hit centers, the outdoor hit centers, even if it was raining.
I didn't have them. I didn't. What are you getting out of the hit center? Tell me.
The high intensity tactical training center is a inventory of equipment that typically comes in beaver fit boxes, right?
Gotcha.
So they're expeditionary in nature, right? You can pack it all up into it, either a ISO container, which is like a 8-foot by 6-foot box, or you can or a 20-footer, right? So a 20 foot by 8-foot, right? Roughly. And they have an inventory of equipment in there. They have racks that come out and they bolt to them. And in Okinawa, at least in Okinawa, and many places across the Corps, they have also built an awning over the top of everything, right? So there's a really famous video of a machine gunner deadlifting like 810 pounds, right? And his whole battalion is around him, right? That is at the hit center in Camp Hansen, on Camp Hansen, in like 20.
Oh, I think I've seen that, dude. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he's crowded, dude. Yep,
he's crowded, right? That's a hit center, right? They're enclosed, they've got a gate, but they're generally open 24/7.
Oh, dude. So then, what's 29 Palms has one too? Then
29 Palms is like the best damn gym in the whole Marine.
I love that gym, dude.
Minus the damn MARSOC gym, but we can't count that.
Yeah, come on.
So we can't count SOCOM money, right?
Seriously.
But
that kind of brings me into my next question with you. Not the hit training, but you're coming out at a perfect time to kind of shine light on this. And I it's been thrown at me because I interview a lot of younger guys. I'm kind of tapped into the Lance Corporal underground to a certain degree, and every single one of them, I mean, they have gripes about leadership. And that's an easy out. Leadership. Well, what does that really mean? What are you telling me when you say the leadership isn't there? And it's coming down to, to me, it seems that it's whether it's the corporals are unmotivated and they're not getting the proper push from. I don't want to point directly at staff NCOs, but I mean, where else is that going to come from? How do you fire up a corporal to, really get guys going? I mean, you're coming out as a first sergeant, bro. What are you seeing at that level that's not trickling down?
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
and that's a tough question, and I'm sorry for.
I don't have like a bunch of big theories, and I stopped being the like on my Instagram account, right? I stopped being the guy who just sits in my car and like shoots out leadership advice, right?
The shot.
It's so fucking overplayed,
I know
man.
who you're talking
You
about,
know,
dude.
it's overplayed by a lot of people, right? Like, a lot of times it's like people just Googled like self-help speeches or
Answer
some
for the
shit,
yeah, exactly.
and look, what I have found is you just have to kind of get out there. You have to manage your time in between the shop, and well, when I say the
It's a
shop,
great answer. It's a great
what
answer.
what I mean is the office in the shop, or the office in the range, the office in the PT field, or whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, man, it used to be like we used to have to go out there in the PT field and do like the daily 16, have to do like drill as we PT'd, right? And it would be it was the only time you saw your staff and COs is like if you got in trouble or something, right? You know what I mean? Like they just weren't really. Uh, I guess I don't know why,
That's
but
just
because
how it was, though. I mean,
that's how it was. I mean, I had like one conversation with my. I don't even remember who the staff and COs were in my first shop. How about that?
would you prefer it that way?
No, definitely not.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Like like you got a bunch of young men and women who are coming into the military and they're looking for guidance, right? They're young, they're in the formative cognitive
Now we talked about
time of their life.
how podcasts are kind of doing that to a certain degree. I
Hmm.
mean, uh, is that the saving grace to a certain?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you it is a method, or it is a place to go and seek some advice, right? And some of them are uniquely focused on leadership. Moments in Leadership by retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Armstrong,
Yep,
right?
great.
Um,
I love his
and
stuff.
and he has done a phenomenal job of showcasing, documenting all these leadership lessons, in some cases from like 45-year careers, right? Um, I'm hoping that Dave can get a little more into the enlisted side, and maybe even start getting some more junior people on.
We need to show that. We need to hear, what they have to say, because I
But
mean,
he's pretty open about it. It is, and I guess you probably know this. It's a challenge to get people to come
of
on.
course, of
It's a
course.
challenge,
I
and
mean,
some
they always think in the back of their head it's gonna fuck them somehow. Like, am I gonna get in trouble from this? You know what I mean? But
or they're not confident that they have the things they have to say are worth something, because
yeah.
maybe they didn't go to combat, or
Stop
maybe.
right there. Stop right there. That's a
Yeah.
huge stigma right now, dude. That's a
Oh
big
yeah,
one,
for
because
sure.
a lot of guys, I mean, they didn't get the opportunities that we did.
Hmm.
And I mean, as Marines, what are we known for? We're the Bulldogs. We're the guys that, go out and handle it. And it's honestly, it sucks that they don't have that opportunity. I mean,
Well, I think
tell,
what's more important is, are you ready? Like, hey, we're both from New England, so you know Tom Brady didn't practice so hard to lose the Super Bowl, right?
ooh, I like it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he lost a couple, but he won seven. You know what
No,
I
but
mean?
he had 7 on. Come on.
Exactly, right? And like, at the end of the day, what's the most important? The most important thing is, are you training to be ready? I talked about the corpsman in my Uncle Dave's basement, and
Yep.
I said the Marine Corps and Navy history is full of corpsmen who had no combat experience that performed on demand, right? If you are The most important thing is the Marine who's training to perform on demand, right? I'm telling you right now, in 20 years, have known people who, because they had a combat action ribbon, didn't think they had to train anymore. Yes, Marine Corps leaders, staff and COs, like, I got mine, I'm good.
Still, honestly, that I would think would be the complete opposite. Those guys would want to train more because they
Well,
saw,
well, that's how I interpreted it. When after I had my experiences, I was like, man,
I got to get better.
I gotta train
Yeah,
more, and I gotta make sure
these guys are ready. You know what I'm
I gotta
saying?
make
Like,
sure these guys are ready. But
yeah,
I have known people that literally thought, because they saw combat, it was like some check in the box for the rest of their life.
now this may hurt some people's feelings, but I think guys like that you're talking about right there didn't really see it. They kind of got that car that was doctored in because someone signed something. And listen, I'm not trying to take shots at anyone, but I mean that's something that happens. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen guys get cars from getting bumped on a patrol that an ID went off 2 miles that way.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean,
well, you know, and honestly, on the opposite end of the spectrum, in like the there are people that saw a lot of combat who the way that they internalize all that is they don't really. Nope. You there?
Got me? Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Good.
You know, there's a lot of guys that saw a lot of combat and they kind of put that in a box, you know, and they put it away, and it's not really like the forefront of their leadership style, right? Which is, you know, it's understandable.
That's a certain type of personality.
Yeah, it's understandable. You know, and I mean, some of the guys I know who've seen the absolute most like savage ass combat, they don't really talk about it much. Yeah. They don't reference it when they talk to the Marines, and
they don't want to be reminded of it. You know what I mean?
Understandable. I get it.
I get that.
But that's not the mentality of, oh, I've got my combat action ribbon, I've got my combat infantry badge, my combat action badge, my combat action medal. You know, and I don't need to train anymore. Like that's just a weird mentality to me, man. Like I can't do that shit. But
that to me, honestly, that's a ribbon chaser. That's someone that wanted to get it. You know what I mean? And after they got it, they're satisfied because they can go to Applebee's and show everyone that they, you know, got their car. But
I think that the base of your question is, you know, what are the NCOs missing out of the Staff and SEAL Corps?
Sorry, we cut off to the left a little bit.
Hey, what are the NCOs missing out of the Staff and SEAL Corps, or what do they need from the Staff and SEAL Corps? They need mentorship and guidance, right?
Facts.
You can be like a corporal or a sergeant in your first enlistment, and you can get very, very good at your MOS. You can. I mean, I've seen guys that, you know, were straight professionals by the end of a 4 or 5 year contract. They were phenomenal.
That got out
in many cases, and they're making great money now, and but what they're not getting is the real world experience or the real world guidance and mentorship, right? And in theory, the Staff NCOs have that, right? And what the Staff NCOs in many cases also have is the rest of the career guidance and experience, right? That Staff NCO was a recruiter. He was an MSG deck commander. He was a MOS school instructor. He was a staff academy instructor. He was a combat instructor. He went to Edson Range to run the range, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That's knowledge these young guys need, though. They need that.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the reasons why, I don't know if this got cut off when we were talking in Maine with the wind, but going back to Truck Company 3rd Mar Div, between Chief Warrant Officer Ambrose, Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tebow, Staff Sergeant Rob Sempel, and myself, within the 4 people, we had a McMap instructor, like 3rd degree, a Marine Corps instructor of water survival, a drill instructor, a recruiter. Yeah. So drone instructor, a recruiter, an MOS school instructor, a combat instructor, a combat marksmanship trainer and coach, and a foreign weapons instructor. And I'm probably
everything in house.
We had literally had everything. And with Sergeant Eddie Ty, he was an MSG watchstander.
How many guys did you pump through that little? I mean,
that was a like 26 Marine platoon.
Wow.
We had a bunch of turnover, obviously. But at one point we had like an 80% like either reenlistment extension or island extension rate. You know, I mean, the guys were staying in, you know, and the ones that got out, it's funny. This was before they changed the policy about 3-year tours in Okinawa. So Marines were leaving Truck Company, going to a platoon in the States, immediately being like, this is jacked up.
What is this? Yeah.
Losing their motivation.
There's a difference, bro. I mean, we talked about, you know, Okinawa. There's a difference. I mean, I saw it. You saw it. Come on.
And in many cases, they were getting out after that experience in a different platoon, you know? And I had conversations with the Motor T monitor when I was there, and he straight up told me, he's like, y'all's reputation is phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah, our platoon, you know,
Damn,
and
he
that
co-signed you. Damn.
and the input from everyone from, you know, my busted down freaking alcoholic private first class who great wrench turner just couldn't manage himself, you know, all the
It
way up.
sucks, you know, for that right there. It sucks that a lot of guys that are really good at their job that just can't, whether take care of themselves or just
Mm-hmm.
be decent human beings or whatever it is.
Well,
Wasted talent is just
yeah.
something that is tough to see.
Well, it's kind of hard when you're, you know, the amount of booze that's probably sold at the Camp Hansen PX is,
Oh,
you know, but and you
and
got
we're aware of this. We're aware. I mean,
you remember them? Remember them Strongs? Those
shoe highs,
shoe highs.
shoe highs. Come on.
Oh,
Woo, woo.
oh my God! But
3 of them, you'd be good to go, dude.
the way that I kind of managed that platoon was it was like we had Sean Tebow, who was like our walking technical manual and also a great mechanic, a phenomenal mechanic. You know, we had you know, the chief warrant officer who was newly appointed warrant officer one, who was going to college too, and he had the ability to train us in both in water survival and McMap, and you know, we had Rob, who had just came off recruiting and was very, very personable and organized, and then we had me, who was like, you know, Marine Corps doctrinal publication one, warfighting, you know, as a person,
Motivator.
right? You know what I mean? Like, and we kind of combined all that, and uh, we were very strict. You know, we had high expectations, and I would, you know,
We
we
noticed
made them.
that brings out the most in your Marines.
Yeah, you know, we made them PT every single day. Thursday was my PT day with the Marines, and um, it was very good. I would have taken that entire platoon to freaking the DMZ and fought the North Koreans right away.
Sucks you couldn't
Absolutely.
brought him over there. You know what I mean?
Right. I would have done it without a question.
No, I meant more so just like the Afghan, go to like just some kind of stage and
Mm-hmm.
really operate with your guys,
Mm-hmm.
because that there's no better feeling than going
Yeah.
over there with a team of guys that you trust and are capable.
And remember,
just,
you know, those guys and those guys and girls are freaking, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. In many cases, they're overseas, they're out of the house for their first time. Like, they're looking for mentorship, guidance. They're looking for a big brother. Some cases they're looking for a fucking dad. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And it's hard to quantify, but it's freaking very true.
That's a real thing in the Marines, man.
And you got to give them that. So you're a staff NCO. Like, I'm not saying you got to be out there every single day, like turning wrenches or you know, kicking boxes in the warehouse or whatever it is. But I'll tell you right now, like, some of the most efficient places I've been, like, one good example is Camp Butler, Okinawa. Okinawa IPAC is a very, very good example of how you can tell that things, the way that I look at like staff and SEAL leadership works. So when I would walk into Okinawa IPAC as a first sergeant, it's different walking into IPAC as a first sergeant than it is as a gunny, by the way. Because they know you're coming with a problem that has to do with your Marines, right?
Gotcha.
But right away, I walk into Camp Foster IPAC, and a sergeant or a corporal gets up and it's like, "How can I help you?" Right? They take the 5 W's of how they can help you, right? And they manage at their level, right? And as soon as like the gunny and the chief warrant officer too hear like, "Good morning, first sergeant," like, they kind of poke their head out, right? And they're like, yeah, and it come, "Hey, how can we help you?" Blah blah.
Which one is it?
Yeah, but you can tell, like admin, for example, there's so many different functional areas of administration of the 0111 MOS that there's no way that those NCOs can be good at what they're doing if that gunny and that warrant officer or chief warrant officer 2 is not directly training them. There's no way. It's not going to happen.
Agreed.
And it seems to me, outside looking in, they do a very good job of rotating those Marines around those different admin sections to make sure that they're a well-rounded administrator, right? So, and I'm telling you right now, like the way that the 0111 field has operated in the 20 years that I've been in, I remember them being very, very good at Camp Pendleton GPAC when it used to be called that back in the day.
GPAC.
Right? GPAC, you know.
I remember
so
that.
I guess that's a shout out to the 01s in the Marine Corps, you know. just one example of how you can go to a place. There's no way that they would be that good if the gunny and the chief warrant officer weren't training them, you know. So
agreed.
and, and on the maintenance side, if the gunny and the chief warrant officer or the staff sergeant and chief warrant officer aren't out there training, things get broken and people get hurt.
Absolutely, that's very true, especially out there. Let's we're getting close to the end here, so I'd like to kind of reach, or at least have you give me something on force design, man.
Oh yeah. So force design 2030. If there's one regret from retirement, other than like wanting to stay and keep getting after it with the boys, right? If there's one regret about not staying in to be a sergeant major, is the transition time period and the build up implementation of force design 2030, right? Like I really would have liked to have been a part of that. And yeah, I can write letters to the Gazette, or I can, apparently the cool thing to do is be a general and like write complaining letters to the freaking Marine Corps Times, right? Like cool.
Taking shots tonight.
Whatever, okay, man. Like that's what it comes off as, man. Like they, I would have liked to have been a part of that, right? I would have liked to have gone to one of the experimental infantry battalions. I would have liked to gone to the new low altitude air defense battalions. So I guess LAB, low altitude air, anti-air battalions, or whatever it is, LAD, the new LAB, LAR, light armor reconnaissance, is about to be freaking. They're about to have like riverine boats and shit.
Yeah, right? I saw that, dude.
Kind
of like the old Vietnam PB boat days.
Yeah. I had a soft invite back to MARSOC, right?
That's a hard one to decline, dude. I mean, family, I get it, but oof.
Yeah, I had a even more solid invite to 1st Marine Division, right? And 1st Marine Division was kind of one of my goals, but for
you've never been there, huh?
Nope. I mean, they were our BLT on both my MUs. I supported them directly in combat, but I was.
And you saw how they,
Yeah, it's Blue Diamond, man. I mean, that's freaking Eugene Sledge shit right
there.
Top
of the line.
Kilo 3-5 stuff.
I hear you. I hear you.
I would have liked to have been part of that and been, a senior enlisted advisor, senior enlisted leader. I know enough of the infantry master sergeants and master gunnery sergeants were more than likely my counterpart. The ops chief of the battalion probably would have been somebody I know. Would have been rad. Force design is necessary. Period. There's no way that we can continue doing what we have been doing and expect to win in combat. Everyone says survive in combat. Surviving in combat is just
not
surviving.
Winning. It's not winning.
We need to win. We need to be able to.
Let's be real. We've become somewhat stagnant. Iraq and Afghanistan is no longer the objective.
Yeah, tell me what we were doing so different than an Army unit, an Army infantry battalion or engineer battalion or insert logistics unit, whatever. Like we weren't doing things so drastically different from the Army in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And so it's like, we treat the Navy as just like we get on Navy boats and they drive us around, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the way that naval warfare works, it's like ask not what the Navy can do for the Marine Corps, but what the Marine Corps can do for the Navy, right? And if we can be positioned to deny sea space to the enemy, so the Navy can conduct its maneuver, right, and annihilate the enemy, then that's what we need to be doing, right? Yeah. And all the opposition, the Marine Corps is just going to be a missile force
or a mobile gas station.
And first of all, we need to have those mobile gas stations, right?
We do.
And I'll tell you, right, I don't want to get into it because I don't know how much we're supposed to talk about, but there's logistics units in Okinawa that are planning and training to be expeditionary advanced base operation logistics components, right?
It's important.
You know, the Marine Corps, so General Neller said on a podcast recently that force design is not like taking away any of our capability. Like, oh my God, tanks are gone. They were broken.
Dude, a lot of people freaked out about that.
The Abrams tank was, it's a big, heavy target, right?
Yeah.
We talked about Ukraine a little bit. Like, you don't have the maneuver space in the littorals, right? You know, and the littorals is not just in Indo-PACOM. The littorals could be up by Norway. It could be in the Mediterranean. It could be anywhere, right? You know, anywhere where that initial area around land, that maritime area in or around land masses, right? That's what we're talking about. So I do like to poke fun on the fact that we named the new littoral combat, Marine, littoral combat team. Like, Marine was already in the name. Like, we didn't have to rename it. Like, littoral is Marine.
Of course
like,
they did, dude.
I don't know why. I don't know why we did that. But
someone smarter than us.
The infantry unit, the infantry squad structure. You're about to have squad systems, UAV operators in the infantry. You're about to potentially have logisticians down to the infantry platoon level. They're adding additional corpsmen, right? They're going to increase the amount of independent duty corpsmen qualified docs, right? We're gonna have we already have, but the Carl Gustav recoilless rifle, 800 meter like first round impacts with lance corporals, right? Like, I mean,
forget about it.
You've got the M-Razor system, which is always just improving. Polaris is always coming out with new versions of that. They need to pay attention to their break-in time. I'll tell you that right now. But
drones.
Yeah, and look, drones are freaking winning. They're
dropping ordnance.
Yeah,
in trench warfare. Yeah. Hopefully that's the last we see of that, dude. I mean,
well, I would say we did do a lot of training with the Ukrainians, but they're still fighting like the Soviets.
That's exactly what I said, dude. I mean,
but I think that force design was necessary. I think it's refreshing, and I think that it gives the Corps, the institution, a target for relevancy.
Agreed. Well put.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, first, it sucks that you had a phenomenal monologue when we were out by the lake up in Maine, and it kind of got cut off because of the wind. If you could leave us with something, we've gone location to location. You've given me my most in-depth, prominent interview. I mean, this is kind of like a farewell to the Marine Corps to you, but a new beginning in certain degrees. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I think what I think my parting I guess opinion is the skills that you learn in your career, whether it's 4 years or 44 years, are immediately transferable to the civilian sector, right? I'm telling you right now, you could be a corporal 0311 with 4 years of experience, and what you need to realize is that you're a project manager. You are. You spent 4 years planning, accounting for equipment, accounting for people, dealing with friction, working more hours than you got compensated for, right?
Yeah.
In my case, I got hired as a operations manager for a logistics LLC, and I'm a supervisor, and I run that place kind of like I ran the Marine Corps. I'm a combination of a motor T chief, a logistics chief.
How they liking that? Like the guy, like the civilians
they do like it, and I have certain experienced drivers within the company and experienced mechanics and things that I go to for counsel or for their opinion, right? And I talk to them, we deconflict, we plan, and
that's essential, I believe. I think there, yeah.
Well, hey, know your Marines and look out for their welfare, right?
Absolutely.
That transfers over.
The nail on the head.
Seek self-improvement, etc. Right? The civilian sector is hungry for leaders, right? Because leadership is not quantifiable, right? There's no metric to measure, there's no finite metric to like measure a leader, right? If you are one of the individuals who only plans on doing an enlistment or two, you kind of got to grab hold and do some things that'll make you more marketable, right?
Dude, this is kind of, not to interrupt you, but this is kind of a rabbit hole that I went into last week when I watched a lot of our footage, and you're right. You're a leader, bro. At the end of the day, that is what just oozes out of you. I think not only does the civilian sector, because of kind of just the era we're in, they're hungry for leaders, but politics, I think it's overrun by you already know where I'm going to go. You already know where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah.
And it's gotten us to a certain place. I think guys, go ahead.
I would say, like, I've stopped really letting all that stuff affect me, man. Like,
you got to it. Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of noise out there. Like, I decided, like, I need to kind of focus on me and affect what I can affect. Like, you got to try to influence your sphere of
what you can,
what you can, right? You have a sphere of influence, and you've got to try to work that the best you can. Like, leverage your GI Bill, leverage your MOS experience. Like, you got to make that resume sound civilian, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that.
Talk their language. I hear you.
You got to talk their language, and you got to realize that it's on you. Like, the whole benefits delivery at discharge, for the VA disability rating, you got to be on point with that, right? You have to make the time to do that stuff, and
it's important.
It is very important because first of all, that's a lot of money, and the monthly pay is important, but it's also a lot of care, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of care, and that injury that you got on a hike going up the ankle breaker when you were in ITB or MCT, like, that is going to affect you when you're 65 years old.
We don't think about that at the time, because we're all bulletproof savages. And
go to medical. I have a gentleman in my company who he was a tanker in the Army for 10 years, and he's got back issues, and I he was on the old M60 tank, and I'm like, hey sir, I call him Sergeant too. Hey Sarge,
he loves it.
I'm like, hey, did you document that stuff in the 80s? He's like, oh, I think I did. I'm like, I'm gonna help you out, man. Because like that VA stuff wasn't pushed back then. You know what I mean?
They didn't want you to know. Yeah.
So I guess the final opinion or piece is, whether you did, you got that honorable discharge, you got that general discharge under honorable conditions, like, you did 2 or 4 or 44 years, like, your service is notable, it's commendable, it's honorable. You're part of a community for the rest of your damn life. You know what I mean? And reach out for advice. Leverage LinkedIn, leverage your the Veterans Affairs process. If you get screwed, look for a lawyer. You know what I mean? Or work it yourself, and there's a lot of good content there's a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of good content you can find out there, and get what's owed to you. You know what I mean? But just remember, like, even if I can almost promise you that even if you're having a bad time, like years and years from now, like, you're going to look back with some pride on your service, regardless of branch.
Well said. And first, I want to thank you for just, giving my platform, your story. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to rock this, and we're going to make you look like a stud that you are.
Appreciate
Semper Fi, episode 77, Hard to Kill, First Sergeant Shamus Flynn. There you have it. Semper Fi, brother. Rah.
Yep. Rah.
you.